All right, so I'm going to show you how to use Google Forms. The first thing I want you to do, remember when we created our website and I told you to create the website folder and put a share on that folder that anybody could see it. That way, anytime you posted something on your website, you wouldn't get a note on your website that says you can't view the file, because if the file that is on your website is in a folder that's not shared with anyone, then no one can see it. But if it's in a folder that's shared with everyone, then it will post properly on your website. The same thing goes for Google Forms. So if you're creating a form, um, I suggest you put it in a folder that has a share with everyone. That way, they won't have any issues seeing it. Okay, so here's my Google Forms folder. So I'm going to go into my folder and I'm going to right click and I'm going to find Google Forms. It might be under your more. So just find your Google Forms, create and share. All right, so this is what Google Forms looks like every time it comes up. Okay, it's the lavender color. That's like the default. All right, so there's a lot of things that you can do here, and I'm going to try to keep it brief, but make sure that you also are aware of all the options that you have when creating a form. So the first thing that's really cool is you can type here and give it a name. So I'm going to call this our practice form. Okay, you can give it a form description if you want to, you don't have to. But because I gave it a name here, all I have to do up here is single click and it gives it that same name. Okay, so here are where I create my questions, and this is a super simple menu. Add a question. If you hover, it will tell you. This is an import questions button. This is pretty cool. So if you've created a Google form and you're creating another form that will have a lot of the same questions, you can import those questions from that other Google form. So basically, you're not reinventing the wheel, which is really nice. This is, you can add a title and a description to the question. You can add an image, which is a really nice feature. You can add a video. So you might want your kids to watch a quick little video clip and then ask them a question to answer. And this is when you want to divide it up into sections. So there are many, many, many reasons why you would want sections, some really cool reasons that we won't get into now. But if you're excited about using Google Forms, let me know, and I will be glad to create another screencast with some more advanced options. So let's go up top. This is add-ons. You probably don't have this icon unless you have add-ons, but this is where I have some add-ons that I use. This is your theme. So pretty simple, pretty basic, right? You can choose your header here. So you can select from this big list of stock images. So you notice that one of your requirements is to have a stock image banner, or you can upload your own photo. So you could say upload and browse to your computer where it is, or your photos folder. So this is where you will create a banner in the background. And so I'm just going to pick one just so we can see what it looks like. So there's my banner. And anytime you do a banner, it changes your theme colors to kind of match that banner. So you can come back in and kind of change that if you want to and give it a little bit of a different feel. If you click here, you can do hex numbers if you have a specific number you like, color, or you can change here and add. So that's a nice feature. Background color, so they give you a few to choose from, but you can kind of choose the one that you want. And then your font style. I'm going to say elementary, early childhood, stay away from fancy fonts. If you think about it, your kids are still learning to actually read. I actually don't even like this font where the A looks like typeset. I like to use a font that shows the letters that look correct form. Okay, so just a tip. I know sometimes early childhood elementary teachers, you like to get cutesy with your presentations and whatever, but keep that in mind when you are doing that sometimes, one, it can be overwhelming when there's too much on the page, too much color, too much things, too many images, too many things going on. You want to keep it sort of basic. I mean, you can make it cute, but make it basic and make sure you're using a font that they can actually read. Okay, so just a little tip there. So I'm going to close out of my themes. Again, this is where I got that, the little color palette at the top. This is kind of nice because you can preview what your form will look like. So if you've created your form and you want to see, okay, what's it going to look like for the person submitting the form, you can do the preview. All right. Then you can come back down here to the pencil and edit again. All right. Then you've got your undo and your redo, which is also really nice. Anytime you see 3 dots in a Google form, that means you have more options. You can make a copy of this form. You can move it to the trash, get a pre-filled link, print it, add collaborators. So you're on a team and y'all want to work on a form together. You can add collaborators, and these are more advanced features. Okay. Next. So here's your questions. So let's create a couple of questions. We're going to say, number 1, what is your name? All right. It automatically kind of detects what kind of question that you're asking. So what is your name? It knows I'm looking for a short answer. But here are your options. Short answer, paragraph, multiple choice, check boxes, which is nice if you want them to choose more than one answer. You can do a drop down. You can upload a file, have your students upload a file, which is also a really nice feature. You can do scales, multiple choice grid, checkbox grid, a date and a time. So lots of great choices here for your types of questions. Then down here, really important, required. So sometimes you're given a quiz, you want every question required, right? You don't want them to miss a question, but it may be a situation where they don't have to answer that question. Maybe it's an opinion or it doesn't relate to them. You don't have to require it. So I typically do require it because most of the time mine are quizzes. And then again, here's our 3 dots. So we can go to 3 dots. You can put a description in. You can do response validation, which is also an advanced feature, but really cool. So if you do response validation, I actually have to do a multiple choice for that. Let's just put in some choices so I can show you what that looks like. Okay, so there's our choices. We're going to go to the 3 dots again and say, go to section based on answer, right? So it changes because I changed it to multiple choice. So that's really cool. So if you're doing some kind of a form where if they answer one way, then they will go to a different section. So, for example, the other day I had to send a form to my students' parents, and it was asking them a specific question. Are you taking your child to testing? Yes or no? If they said yes, then they had to answer some more questions for me. So if they said yes, then I had them go to section 2 automatically. If they said no, then they just clicked submit and they were done. So it was kind of nice because then the parents that said no didn't have to answer or even look at those other questions. You can also shuffle the order. So if you have students in the classroom and they are near each other, you might want to shuffle the order. That way they're not looking at each other's work. So we're going to go back and change that to short answer. It's required. This is copy, duplicate. So that's a nice feature if you are creating a lot of questions that are very similar, but you're just making minor changes. Again, you don't have to recreate the wheel. You can duplicate. So that's a nice feature. This is also a nice feature. You can add an image. I use this a lot in math. So when I'm creating math forms, I will create their math equation and then I'll create it and turn it into an image so that it's nice and big. So it doesn't look like these words. It looks really big and it makes it easier for them. So you can add an image. Nice feature. I love that. So there's our first question. We simply go to the plus to add another question. Okay. Another nice feature is you see these dots right here. This means you can move it around. So I created my quiz and then I'm like, oh, you know what? I want this one up here and I want that one down there. So you can move it around, which is also a really nice feature. So let's see, what else do I want to show you? So we did the different colors. Remember that's up here in the theme. Okay, so that's how you create your questions. Then as a teacher, this is what you see, right? So remember, this is the preview, what they see, but this is what you see, responses. Okay. So when they start creating their answers, filling out the form, you're going to see their responses right here. In just a second, I will show you one of my kids' forms that they completed, and you can see what the data looks like. So this is important, accepting responses. So you might have a due date and you're like, you need to complete this form by a certain time. So when that time expires, you can say, done, I'm not accepting any more responses. And you can even leave a message. Sorry, the due date was whatever time that is. And then they will get that message when they try to complete the form. So that's kind of nice. It turns it off. So this right here is Google Sheets. That's a spreadsheet, just like Excel and Word. So what you want to do when you open your form, you want to go to responses and you want to just click on it. If you click on it, it's going to say create a new spreadsheet. That's what you want to do. So an advanced option is selecting an existing spreadsheet. That could be if you are creating several forms, but you want all the data to go into one spreadsheet. So that would be selecting an existing spreadsheet. But we're just going to put it right here in a new form. We're going to say create. And what's really nice is this spreadsheet will have all of your data from the form. So when they complete the form, the data goes in this spreadsheet. And guess what? It's automatically saved right here in the folder next to your form. So that's a really nice feature as well. You don't have to go looking for it. It's right there. And the fact that it's a Google form, then you can start using all of your tools to sort, if you're looking for specific data, it's in a spreadsheet now. And so you can use all the tools to find the data that you're looking for. So I'm going to go back. So remember, that's right here. Again, there's 3 dots. What is this? Get email notifications for new responses. Now, this I love. I don't know how it will work in other grade levels or even your teaching style, but for me, I teach virtual. And so we're in the classroom together and I'm giving them a quiz. And sometimes my kids are only 7, they're second graders. Sometimes they will leave the meet or they'll forget or whatever it may be. And so I've already graded all the ones that come in, but I don't want to have to go back and remember, oh, yeah, we took that quiz. So I turn on get email notifications for new responses. So when that kid makes that quiz up 4 hours later, I get an email that says, so and so made up this quiz, view it. It brings me to the form. I can look at their grade and I can put it in the grade book. So that's a nice feature. I really like that. These are some more options that you probably won't use. Unlinking the form. So if you remember, you can stop accepting responses. So, it's kind of the same thing as unlinking the form. That way they can't use it anymore. And then you can also download it, but you don't really need to download it as a CSV because you've got your spreadsheet data. Okay. And then once I have responses, I can print those if I need to, or I can delete all the responses. So let's say it's the end of the year. I don't want to have to recreate the wheel. I know I'm going to use this quiz again. I just go in, I delete all their responses, and I reuse the quiz. So that's a really nice feature as well. Then you've got your settings. So you go into your settings, all right? So if you're making this a quiz, you're going to turn that on. Okay, and it gives you a lot more options. So you kind of have to decide, read through each of these and decide how you want your quiz to look, because it's your quiz and you have to decide, do you want them to get their grade after they turn it in? All right. I like to do that because my kids are obsessed with seeing how well they did. I also allow my students to retake it so they can look at it, see what they missed, and then they can retake it and try again. And to me, the learning happens in the mistake. So I like to allow them to retake. You can also later after manual review. All right. So this automatically collects their email address, which is kind of nice. But then it gives you a chance to go through. You may have an open-ended question that you need to go in and read to give them their points. So you would probably want a later after manual review. If your students are on Chromebooks, you can lock them. So you can click this to lock the Chromebook. That way they can't go to other tabs and look the answers up. And then you've got some settings here. Do you want them to see which questions they missed? Do you want them to see the correct answer? Do you want them to see how many points each question is? So you can decide. You'll notice I didn't touch those. The default is on. So if you don't want them to see any of that, you have to go in and turn that off. Then you can do a default point value, right? Which is nice. So you don't have to give the points for each question. You can just say, I want them all to be 5 points, right? Very rarely do I do that because I give different points for different types of questions. If the question's harder, I give more points. Then you've got this responses. Manage how responses are collected and protected. So you can collect their email address. You can send them a copy of their response. So they would get a copy of their form when they finish filling it out. You may not want to do that if it's a quiz or a test because then it'll get passed around. Allow response editing. So this happens live. I've had this happen to me where I'm creating a form, I'm filling out a form and then I made a mistake. And I was like, oh, I need to go back. And so it allows me to go back and fix that mistake. So you could allow response editing. Then mine is restricted to Greenville County because I'm in Greenville County. Yours, if whatever school district you're in, it will automatically restrict it. You can turn that off if you're allowing other people to take it, but I recommend you leave that on. And then here's the limit to one response. So when I want my kids to have the ability to retake, I turn that off, right? Then they're allowed to retake it. So I come up here, I don't let them see the correct answer, but I do let them see the wrong answer and I let them retake it. So to retake it, all they do is simply click on the link again. It brings up the quiz and they can retake it. So that's what I do. Then you've got your presentation here. You can show a progress bar at the bottom if it's really long so they can see how much more they have. You can shuffle the question order. Like I said, that might be helpful if you have students in a class sitting beside each other. You can do a confirmation message. This is kind of nice. Just after they submit it, you could say something, like, oh, you completed your quiz. Check your answers, whatever. If you want them to retake it, you may retake it, learn from your mistakes, whatever. You can edit that and make that response whatever you want it to be. And then show link to submit another response. So you've got the option here. I unlimited it so they can continue to take it. And so you can see here, show link to submit another response. View results summary. This is allowing them to see the summary. I don't do this. If you're using it as a poll or some way that you want the students to see the data, then you could do this, but I don't ever do that just simply because of the age of my students. And then disable autosave for all respondents. Not exactly sure what that one is. That is a new one for me, so I would have to look that up. Autosave makes me think that it's saving their questions as they go, maybe. Then you've got your defaults. So form default, setting applied to this form and new forms, collecting email addresses by default. So if that's something that you always want to do, you can turn that on. Question defaults, make questions required by default. That way you don't have to go in and every time you create a question, you click that required at the bottom. So if you know you're requiring every question, you can turn that on. Lot here, okay? There's a lot here. So go through these, look at all of these options, read through them carefully, figure out how you want your form to look, right? So like I said, one of your requirements is a quiz. And when you came into these settings, make this a quiz was defaulted to turn off. When you turn it on, you got all these options, right? So one of the things that I said is you have to create a quiz and set it up so that it will provide descriptive feedback. All right, so I'm going to stop this video and I'm going to go find one of my students' forms that I've had them complete, and I'm going to show you what that looks like.